Hey, this is Major Lake Fishing Pro Todd Walters, and I'm going to show you how I assemble a swim jig. So you can buy all the components at Dave's Tournament Tackle. I like the 3/8 ounce. If you can see this, it's got a smaller hook. It's a light wire hook, and it's got a light weed guard on it, but is a little pointed, so it does swim, and it's flat, as you can see. So it stays true pretty much all the time. So what I do is I take a skirt. I'm just going to use white because it shows up the best. And take a long part, flip it over, thread the skirt up onto the jig. And then what I do is, so it doesn't bunch up, when you get up to the first part of the lead, you just hold it together and push it up so it doesn't bunch. And then get it up on that top and just flip it over and get it so that it's equally distributed around the hook. You can flip it over, spread it apart, so it's like that. And mess around, flip it over, make sure it's kind of spread out as best as you can so that it kind of looks like that. Then what I do is I keep it spread apart from top to the bottom, and I'll take a piece of braided fishing line. This is just 50-pound line that I took off an old baitcaster and wound it back onto a spool. And then, hopefully you can see this, just wrap it around the top of the collar maybe 4 or 5 times. With 50-pound braid, you can cinch it down pretty good, and then just loop it around 5 times, and then just a couple overhand knots. Hopefully, see that. Couple overhand knots, pull it tight, cut the braid. And what you have is a perfect little swim jig. And what you can do is you can trim up the bottom if you need to. So that's kind of even. Some guys will cut it on an angle if they want to imitate a bait fish. And you can pull the skirt around just so that it looks just like that. Now here's the super secret. So you flip it over, notice it's got this little lead collar on it right here, and it's got this little point on it. Here's what I do. I hold the weed guard up like this, just gently so you don't break it or bend it. Just hold it up like this. Take your braid again. Take about, 3 or 4 inches. Wrap it back towards you 5 or 6 times on that collar. Then flip it like this. Wrap it down the collar so it's solid green, like that, or white, or whatever color braid you use. And go down the hook. Maybe to the bend or so. Wrap it around a couple times. This is 50-pound braid. With 10 or 20, you got to do it way too many times to get a good amount of braid on there. Then what you do is you cut about 3 or 4 inches off. This is more like 5, but I want to show you how to do this. Go around and do a half hitch knot, fly tie, guys. We'll know what I'm talking about. You just basically make a big loop, go around your finger, go back through the loop, cinch it down. What you have is a big wad of braided line on your hook and on your collar. Cut this other piece of braid off. This is what you end up with, is you have a jig with a bunch of braid wrapped around here to keep your skirt up. So if you skip it or rip it through the grass or pull it through any type of vegetation, sticks, laydowns, whatever, the skirt will never come down. And you have this big wad of braid on the shank of your hook. And what you do with this big wad of braid is it holds your keeper in place. So you thread your keeper up right till it touches the braid, just like that. Take a drop of super glue, put it here, and just very little, but you want to spread it all over the braid. And then put your jig trailer, this is just a rage bug. Push your jig trailer up so it's straight. And I promise you this will last forever. The only time that you'll have to change out your jig trailer is when they nip off your tails. If you use an Elastec or a Z-Man or some sort of Elastec product, you can typically keep this jig trailer on your jig for the entire day, if not longer. You can do this with jigs, you can do it with drop shot hooks. If you thread something onto a drop shot hook, this is where I originally started doing it. Was I used a B10 Stinger up on the St. Lawrence River and had an Elastec finesse minnow, and I threaded it on there, and I could go all day long, and I would never have to change baits or have to push my bait up. And in that current, your bait has to lay straight. So that's my tip. I've shown a few people this, but it seems to be one of those things that, you know, why didn't I think of that? But that braid will adhere to that soft plastic trailer, and it will hold it in place all day long. So that's how I make a jig, and this has caught a ton of fish for me and won me a ton of money. So hopefully it works for you too.